Every time I leave, I try not to come back, but her house always pulls me in. The story opens with the narrator, a young man in his mid-20s, walking up the familiar path to his friend's house. The air is crisp, carrying a faint scent of autumn leaves mixed with the subtle perfume of flowers that always seem to bloom near the porch. He hesitates for a brief moment at the gate, almost unconsciously, as if the house itself is calling him back, a sensation he knows all too well. As he steps inside, the quiet familiarity of the space wraps around him like a soft blanket. The living room is unchanged, the same well-worn couch, the small stack of books on the side table, the slightly tilted family portraits on the wall. He notices the way sunlight filters through the curtains, casting a warm golden glow that makes dust motes dance lazily in the air. Each small detail, mundane yet comforting, stirs a quiet nostalgia in him, a reminder of countless afternoons spent here as a younger version of himself. Then he hears her, the soft, rhythmic clatter of dishes from the kitchen, followed by a gentle laugh that immediately draws him in. She moves through the room with an effortless grace, an aura of quiet confidence that hasn't changed with time. She is captivating, not in a flashy way, but in the small, deliberate gestures, the tilt of her head as she hums a tune under her breath, the way she brushes a stray lock of hair behind her ear, and the soft warmth in her eyes when they catch his. There's a pause. A subtle recognition flickers across her face, just for a moment, before she masks it with a polite, welcoming smile. The narrator feels it too, a familiar pull, as though some unspoken understanding exists between them, layered beneath the casual conversation of greetings and small talk. It's the kind of connection that feels natural, yet electric, leaving him acutely aware of the space between them, the invisible thread of history, curiosity, and unspoken emotion. As he settles into the room, he notices how the house itself seems alive with memories. The faint scent of vanilla and old books mingles in the air, bringing a sense of comfort that is almost tactile. He remembers sitting in this very chair years ago, listening to her stories, laughing at his friends' antics, feeling like a part of a world just slightly larger than his own. Now, as an adult, he sees her differently, more composed, more graceful, quietly magnetic, but the warmth she radiates feels as familiar as the rhythm of his own heartbeat. The opening scene should be slow, deliberate, and immersive for the audience. Use close-up visuals of his observations, his fingers brushing against the worn armrest, the soft light on her face, the small details that reveal her personality. The goal is to let viewers feel the nostalgia, curiosity, and subtle pull of attraction without a single word of overt romance. The tension is quiet but unmistakable, hinting that the narrator's return is about more than just friendship. It's about something unspoken, yet profoundly magnetic. By the end of this part, the audience should feel the narrator's inner stirrings, a mix of comfort, curiosity, and a flutter of something deeper. The hook of emotional tension is set, drawing viewers into the story, eager to follow the slow-burning connection that is only just beginning to reveal itself. The afternoon settles into a gentle rhythm as the narrator and his friend's mom move through the familiar, sunlit kitchen. There's a warmth in the air, not just from the sunlight filtering through lace curtains, but from the unspoken comfort between them. She pours 2 cups of tea, the soft clink of porcelain punctuating their casual chatter. The aroma of chamomile and a hint of honey rises, mingling with the faint scent of her perfume, a warm, floral note that has always lingered in his memory. They sit at the small kitchen table, the wood worn smooth from years of use, and begin talking. At first, it's the usual pleasantries, asking about school, work, and life in general. But soon, the conversation drifts into familiar territory, stories from his childhood visits. She teases him about the mischievous pranks he pulled on her son, recalling the time he accidentally flooded the backyard with the garden hose, or the afternoon spent racing toy cars down the hallway. Her laughter is soft and genuine, carrying the kind of warmth that makes the room feel smaller, cozier, and completely theirs. The narrator notices little details, how her eyes crinkle at the corners when she laughs, the subtle lift of her eyebrows when she delivers a punchline, the gentle tilt of her head when she listens to him reply. Each gesture is graceful and fluid, commanding attention without demanding it. He finds himself watching her more closely than necessary, captivated by the way her presence fills the space. How ordinary movements suddenly feel intimate, almost magnetic. Playful banter continues, a dance of memory and humor that draws them closer emotionally. He makes a small joke about his clumsiness as a child, and she responds with a teasing smile, her fingers brushing his as she passes the sugar. That fleeting contact sends a quiet thrill through him, the kind that is difficult to articulate but impossible to ignore. There is a tension now, subtle yet undeniable, built not on overt attraction, but on shared understanding, familiarity, and the quiet thrill of being noticed by someone who has always mattered. She leans back in her chair, hands wrapped around her warm cup, and observes him as though seeing him in a new light. Not just the boy who once visited her home, but the young man he's become. The narrator, in turn, notices her vulnerability in these moments. The gentle exhale after laughter, the softening of her eyes when she reflects on the past, the unspoken depth behind her poised demeanor. He senses a story behind her calm, confident exterior, a quiet strength that has endured time, yet is still touched by nostalgia and tenderness. For the YouTube script, emphasize visuals and subtle cues. The way her hair falls as she turns, the golden sunlight catching her features, the fleeting, almost imperceptible touches, and the rhythm of their conversation that flows like an intimate dance. The goal is to let the audience feel the closeness and emotional tension naturally, without needing explicit statements. By the end of this part, the audience should sense the growing bond between them. What began as casual conversation is now an emotional bridge, connecting shared history with present feelings. The subtle attraction lingers, a quiet pulse under the warmth of nostalgia, teasing viewers with the slow, inevitable pull of something deeper yet unspoken. The late afternoon sun casts long, golden streaks across the living room floor, dust motes dancing in the quiet light. The narrator finds himself helping around the house, straightening books, wiping the edge of the counter, or fixing a small, stubborn cabinet hinge. It's ordinary, almost mundane, yet each action feels charged with subtle significance. In these small tasks, he notices the way she watches him, a soft, attentive gaze that lingers just a moment too long to be casual. She pauses in her own work, leaning against the doorway, her arms crossed loosely, and begins sharing something she's never mentioned before, a worry, a fleeting insecurity, or a memory that still tugs at her heart. Her voice is calm, steady, but there's a hint of vulnerability beneath the measured tone. Perhaps she talks about a lonely afternoon years ago, or the fleeting doubt of parenting a grown child, or a quiet longing she rarely allows herself to feel. The narrator listens intently, caught in the rhythm of her words, sensing layers of strength wrapped in softness. Their interaction is punctuated by tiny, charged moments. Her hand brushing against his shoulder as she points to something on the counter, the faint warmth lingering after the touch, the casual tilt of her head toward him as she seeks his opinion, her hair falling slightly over her face, inviting a glance. He notices the quiet steadiness of her presence, the subtle heartbeat of familiarity and care that runs deeper than friendship. It's a magnetic warmth, gentle, nonverbal, and entirely immersive. As she speaks, he feels a protective instinct rise within him, not in a domineering way, but as an almost instinctive desire to offer comfort and understanding. The words she chooses, the pauses between sentences, the soft exhale that follows, all reveal someone who is quietly human, quietly flawed, and yet deeply captivating. He realizes that there's more to her than the confident, composed woman he's always admired from afar. There's depth, fragility, and resilience intertwined. For YouTube visuals, focus on intimate, sensory-rich cues, the glint of sunlight on her hair, the slight nervous shift of her fingers on the counter, the way his hand hesitates before resting briefly near hers, show moments of stillness, their eyes meeting across the room, a small smile that conveys shared understanding, the quiet weight of vulnerability lingering in the air. These details are what make the audience feel the emotional undercurrent, building a slow, steady tension without needing overt statements of attraction. By the end of this part, the emotional intimacy is deepening. The audience should sense a shift. The narrator is no longer simply a visitor. He's becoming someone who matters, whose presence brings comfort and attention to her vulnerabilities. The subtle, YouTube-safe romantic tension is growing. Touches, glances, and shared silences carry more weight than words. The foundation for trust, emotional closeness, and the slow burn of attraction is firmly established, drawing viewers further into the story and leaving them eager to see how the connection unfolds. The evening settles gently over the house, casting long shadows through the living room. A soft, golden glow from the table lamp creates pockets of warmth in the otherwise dim space. The narrator and his friend's mom sit together on the couch, a cozy distance apart, yet each subtle movement feels laden with quiet significance. Perhaps they are folding laundry, scrolling through old photographs, or simply sharing a quiet moment after dinner. Tasks that seem ordinary but carry an undercurrent of intimacy. There is a rhythm to their interaction, unspoken and delicate. A hand brushes lightly against the other as he reaches for a folded towel, a fleeting touch that lingers longer than expected. She notices and smiles, just enough to acknowledge the contact without breaking the calm tension that has grown between them. The narrator senses the warmth of her presence, the gentle hum of her breathing, the soft heat radiating from her body, the subtle scent of her perfume mingling with the evening air. It's magnetic in a quiet, unassuming way, drawing him closer without words. Their conversation is minimal, but loaded with meaning. Silences stretch comfortably, punctuated by small gestures, a tilt of the head, the way her eyes meet his across the couch, the barely noticeable shift when she leans slightly toward him. Each glance carries weight, suggesting a familiarity and understanding that words cannot capture. The audience should feel the tension in these pauses, the unsaid thoughts, the curiosity, the mutual acknowledgement of attraction that neither fully admits aloud. The narrator becomes acutely aware of her subtle body language, how she positions herself when sitting, the way she crosses and uncrosses her legs, the soft touch of her hand on her lap, or how she casually brushes hair behind her ear. Every motion feels deliberate yet natural, an elegant mix of composure and openness. In turn, he notices his own reactions, an involuntary lean toward her, the warmth in his chest when their eyes meet, the quiet excitement in his fingers at every accidental brush. For YouTube visuals, focus on intimacy through spatial and sensory detail. The soft glow of the lamp reflecting in her eyes, the subtle brush of their knees as they adjust on the couch, the shared laughter that emerges quietly over an inside joke, the small, fleeting touches that speak louder than words. Encourage the audience to feel the rhythm of closeness, the heartbeat of connection that grows without any explicit declaration. By the end of this part, the slow burn tension has deepened significantly. The narrator's awareness of her presence is sharper, his attraction more palpable, and their emotional intimacy quietly solidified. The audience should feel a sense of magnetic pull between the two, a connection that is simultaneously comforting, tender, and thrilling, yet still safe and YouTube appropriate. This moment establishes a foundation for further vulnerability and emotional honesty, setting the stage for the internal conflicts and confessions to come in the next parts of the story. Rain begins to patter softly against the windows, a gentle, rhythmic background to the quiet hum of the house. The narrator sits near the living room window, watching drops streak down the glass, blurring the familiar view outside. The atmosphere feels cocooned, intimate, almost private, as if the world beyond these walls has faded. He feels the warmth of the lamp beside him, the faint aroma of her perfume still lingering in the room, and the quiet presence of her nearby. But tonight, everything feels heavier. He is suddenly acutely aware of his own emotions, curiosity, admiration, and a slowly building attraction that he struggles to categorize. The awareness of the age difference between them and the unspoken social rules that hover around it gnaws at him. He reminds himself of friendship, of boundaries, yet each time he looks at her, notices the curve of her smile, the subtle grace in her posture, or the warmth in her voice. The lines between admiration and desire blur. She moves about the room, tidying something or pouring herself a cup of tea, completely unaware of the storm swirling inside him. He notices everything. The gentle tilt of her head as she hums softly, the way the light catches her hair in a halo of golden strands, the delicate flex of her fingers as she lifts the cup. Every small detail seems amplified tonight, pulling him further into a quiet emotional conflict he is not ready to face. The narrator's thoughts drift, questioning everything. Does she feel it too? Is this just familiarity, nostalgia, or something more? He recalls past moments, the lingering hand touches, the small smiles, the silent glances across the room, and wonders if they were coincidences or quiet signals. His chest tightens with the weight of restraint. He wants to reach out, to close the distance, yet hesitation holds him back. Meanwhile, the woman senses a subtle shift in his demeanor. Perhaps she notices the tension in his shoulders, the way he avoids her gaze for fleeting moments, or the slight pause before he speaks. In her quiet, perceptive way, she wonders if there's more beneath his outward composure. There is a mutual, unspoken recognition forming between them, a silent dialogue of emotion, curiosity, and restraint. Neither admits it, yet both feel it, a slow-burning connection that is as thrilling as it is complicated. For YouTube storytelling, this scene relies heavily on close-ups and sensory cues. The rain streaking the windows, reflections of warm light on his contemplative face, her subtle movements across the room, and the brief, charged moments when their eyes meet and quickly look away. The audience should feel the narrator's internal struggle viscerally, the tension between longing and caution, desire and propriety. By the end of this part, the emotional stakes are clear. The narrator's hesitation and self-awareness make the tension feel real, relatable, and human. The audience senses the magnetic pull between them, but also the restraint and depth of character that prevent a rushed or superficial connection. This is the turning point where internal conflict sets the stage for small, meaningful gestures, acts of care and subtle intimacy that will slowly shift their relationship from tension to quiet, YouTube-safe romance. The evening has deepened, the rain outside softening into a gentle drizzle, and the house is quiet except for the faint hum of a heater and the occasional rustle of leaves against the window. The narrator and his friend's mom are together in the kitchen, tidying up after dinner. There's a comfortable rhythm to their movements. She wipes the counter while he dries dishes, their hands occasionally brushing, and each touch feels electric in its subtlety. It's in these small, ordinary actions that the unspoken confession begins to emerge, not through words, but through gestures layered with meaning. When he steadies the stool she's about to climb to reach a high shelf, his hand lingers lightly on her back. The warmth of her skin against his palm is grounding, and he feels the quiet hum of connection that has been building over weeks, now intensified by these fleeting, gentle touches. She glances back at him, and their eyes meet for a moment that stretches just long enough for both to feel the weight of unspoken emotions. Later, as she carries a cup of tea toward the living room, the narrator instinctively moves to open the door for her. The soft brush of their fingers as the cup is passed is brief, yet charged with anticipation. There is a subtle acknowledgement in that simple contact, a mutual recognition of care, respect, and something deeper that neither dares to name aloud. It is the slow-burn confession, communicated through shared presence rather than dialogue. In the warmth of the softly lit room, they settle into the couch. Perhaps she adjusts a cushion, or he reaches to fold a blanket over her lap. Gestures that are practical, yet tender in their intention. Their proximity is intimate but safe. The air between them vibrates with tension and affection. He notices the way she leans slightly toward him, her fingers grazing his as she smooths the blanket, and the gentle warmth that spreads through him in response. She feels the same pull, a delicate mix of curiosity, admiration, and subtle desire tempered by restraint. For YouTube visuals, focus on the sensory richness of these interactions. The flickering glow of the lamp casting soft light across their faces, the lingering warmth of hands that brush briefly, the quiet exhale that follows a small, intimate gesture, and the subtle smiles exchanged in silence. Close-ups on hands, fleeting glances, and tiny movements convey the depth of their connection without words, letting the audience feel the slow, simmering intimacy. By the end of this part, the emotional tension reaches a turning point. The audience witnesses a confession not through speech, but through deliberate, thoughtful action. Care, attentiveness, and small gestures that communicate affection, admiration, and a burgeoning romantic bond. The characters are now fully aware of the pull between them, and it is palpable, yet safe and YouTube appropriate. This sets the stage for the story's emotional resolution, where connection and warmth culminate in a satisfying, tender ending. The evening air has grown cooler, and the rain has slowed to a soft drizzle, tapping gently against the windows. The house is quiet, illuminated by the warm glow of a single lamp in the living room. The narrator stands near the door, coat in hand, preparing to leave. Each movement feels heavier than usual, laden with the intimacy and tension that have built over the past visits. He hesitates, aware of the pull he feels toward this place and the woman who inhabits it so gracefully. She stands nearby, folding a blanket or straightening the room, her movements calm yet deliberate. As he pauses at the door, she turns toward him, her expression softening into a knowing, slightly teasing smile. "You always find a way back to this house," she says, her voice carrying warmth, familiarity, and a hint of unspoken emotion. Those words hang in the air, simple yet loaded with meaning, a gentle acknowledgement of the bond that has formed between them, unspoken but undeniable. For a moment, they both simply stand there, caught in the quiet intimacy of the room. The narrator feels the soft weight of her gaze, the way it lingers, attentive and approving. He senses the warmth of her presence, the subtle fragrance of her perfume mingling with the faint scent of the home, and the way the light catches her features, highlighting the quiet strength and beauty she has always possessed. There is a tension in the pause, not of conflict, but of anticipation, an understanding that what they share is significant, delicate, and wholly their own. He steps closer, instinctively bridging the small gap between them. Their hands meet in a soft, lingering touch, neither hurried nor forced, just deliberate enough to communicate care and connection. The warmth of her palm against his, the gentle squeeze of reassurance, and the steady rhythm of her heartbeat beneath his fingers convey more than words ever could. It is a quiet confession, mutual and complete, delivered safely and tenderly. For YouTube visuals, emphasize the subtle cues, the way their eyes meet and soften, the slight lean toward one another, the glow of the lamp creating a halo around her face, and the careful attention to hand placement and touch. Capture the moment of pause, the breath held, the unspoken acknowledgement of attraction, and the comfort of shared presence. These details allow the audience to feel the culmination of the slow-burn romance without crossing into overt physicality. Finally, they share a gentle hug, a soft, lingering embrace that communicates warmth, safety, and mutual respect. Her cheek rests lightly against his chest, and he feels the quiet steadiness of her heartbeat. It is a moment of closure and emotional fulfillment. The tension built over days, weeks, or months has been released into trust, care, and unspoken affection. As he steps back, A soft smile passes between them, full of promise, familiarity, and hope. The narrator walks away, the pull of the house and her presence lingering in his chest. She watches him leave, her smile quietly affirming the connection they share. It is a satisfying, complete ending, warm, emotionally resonant, and YouTube appropriate, leaving the audience with a sense of closure and lingering sweetness. By the end of this part, the story resolves the slow burn tension in a way that is tender, human, and emotionally fulfilling, emphasizing connection, care, and subtle romantic acknowledgement.